Imagine for an instant that life does not exist. Erase the entire universe, the galaxies, the planets, and all life forms. Imagine there is just nothingness. Nothing to look at. Nothing to taste. Nothing to hear. Nothing at all for our senses to perceive. This is infinite consciousness in its rawest form. Doesn't seem very exciting, does it? This is why we have decided to create. Why have we created all that we experience on the planet? What is the purpose of life? Is this all simply a series of random events? Or is there an ultimate reason as to why we are all here? We are all one consciousness, all equal parts of one unified source. It is of this source that all matter, life, and experience is made. Source, or consciousness, is what some may refer to as God or the Creator. Many physicists refer to it as the unified field of consciousness. Many believe it to be a separate entity altogether. However, this consciousness is not something outside of or greater than us. It simply is us. The truth is, you already know this. Beyond all ideals, perceptions, accepted concepts of our reality and belief systems that we have, there is a fundamental knowing that each one of us holds. That knowing is an understanding of who and what we truly are. The only reason we don't clearly see it and often doubt it is because we have chosen to forget. By forgetting, we are able to engage in the experience fully and see what each has to offer. Let's back up for a moment. We are Source, one consciousness. But what does that actually mean? Who are we? Why are we experiencing what we call life on this planet? To answer this, remember what it felt like to be infinite consciousness? Not that experientially rich, is it? This is why Source, who we truly are, decided to expand itself into individual bits of consciousness. These individual bits of consciousness are all souls. These souls are who we truly are. We are individual facets of a whole, all connected as one, all made from the same thing and all complete potentiality. You may wonder why Source, who is already whole and all-knowing, needed to expand itself into souls if it already knows and is everything. It did so because Source wanted to become experientially rich. By expanding into souls, Source can use its creativity to know itself in an even richer way. Now that we understand who we are, the next big question is, why are we here experiencing life on this planet? The search for this answer is naturally apparent within each of us. It is the big question we have been trying to answer for centuries on this planet. Not that it was ever not known, but it was simply hidden and misguided. The purpose to life is not to plague ourselves with finding the answer, but instead to be on a journey of experiencing, learning, and remembering who we truly are.
judging and categorizing and whatnot. We have to realize and remember that we are neutral souls that are creating experiences for ourselves for our own growth.
Now, does this mean that the soul is cold or unloving? Absolutely not. It is only the mind that will push you to define it in this way. The soul, on the other hand, sees each challenge as another opportunity to let go of or further discover who it truly is. We have chosen to create our experiences each and every time we incarnate. To assist in this process, our souls act as a recorder while we experience. Each experience that provides growth is observed and retained by the soul so it can continue its evolution. The recording allows us to create whatever experience we require next based on what we have experienced already. Remember, the soul has come into the body forgetting who it truly is. Why? To enable itself to have these experiences and to be able to do so fully and completely.
And then what we've created is basically ourselves fragmented and become soul fragments, and to come here to create a physicality and to experience ourselves in a physicality, forgetting who we are completely. And in that play of forgetting who we are, then we can actually look at our creation, and when we're playing with it, to us it's almost like we don't know anything about it. Everything is an experience of new.
We have expanded into souls and have created a planet. Now we need to experience that planet. To achieve this, we created a vehicle for the soul to inhabit while living on the planet. The more we look at it, the more we realize that we simply create conditions for the body based on what we choose to experience. Nothing that we accept today as fact about the body has to be the way it is. It is projected as it needs to be and is able to mold to our consciousness as we change it. We may have analytical data that shows the body must be a certain way, but the science that shows this is simply based on the consciousness creating the current state of the body. In other words, the science is limited to one point in time. As things shift, instead of rewriting science, we have simply held on to the archaic understandings. In doing this, you realize that you are not the thoughts. You are something else. You are the soul observing the thoughts. The problem is, we never asked this question. Therefore, we go on thinking that we simply are those thoughts we are listening to. There are two parts to the ego, the upper ego and the lower ego. The upper ego is where we define basic characteristics of ourselves. This is done through programming. We define the gender of our body, the type of culture we have, and what programming we take on from our family genetic coding. The second layer of the ego is the lower ego. This is where we store all of the stories, programs, and belief systems that we pick up. These are what drive our decisions and actions throughout our life. Both parts to the ego are nothing more than a false sense of self that is implanted within the subconscious mind. They combine to make us identify and believe that we are our thoughts. It does so by convincing us that our thoughts contain truth within our reality. When we think of the word ego, we often associate it with someone that is self-centered and arrogant. Here we are going to refer to the ego as something else. Here, the ego is the program that we operate off of, the piece that drives us on a daily basis and disconnects us from who we truly are. As mentioned earlier, everything is made up of infinite potentiality, and the moment consciousness decides to create from that, creation takes place. The findings of physicist Thomas Young in his famous double-slit experiment helps to show this, and while doing so sheds light on the quantum field and how our entire reality operates.
And here we are, the granddaddy of all quantum weirdness, the infamous double-slit experiment. To understand this experiment, we first need to see how particles, or little balls of matter, act. If we randomly shoot a small object, say a marble, at the screen, we see a pattern on the back wall where they went through the slit and hit. Now, if we add a second slit, we would expect to see a second band duplicated to the right. Now, let's look at waves. The waves hit the slit and radiate out, striking the back wall with the most intensity directly in line with the slit. The line of brightness on the back screen shows that intensity. This is similar to the line the marbles make. But when we add the second slit, something different happens. If the top of one wave meets the bottom of another wave, they cancel each other out. So now there is an interference pattern on the back wall. Places where the two tops meet are the highest intensity, the bright lines, and where they cancel, there is nothing. So, when we throw things, that is, matter, through two slits, we get this, two bands of hits. And with waves, we get an interference pattern of many bands. Good so far. Now, let's go quantum. An electron is a tiny, tiny bit of matter, like a tiny marble. Let's fire a stream through one slit. It behaves just like the marble, a single band. So, if we shoot these tiny bits through two slits, we should get, like the marbles, two bands. What? An interference pattern. We fired electrons, tiny bits of matter through. We get a pattern like waves, not like little marbles. How? How could pieces of matter create an interference pattern like a wave? It doesn't make sense. But physicists are clever. They thought, maybe those little balls are bouncing off each other and creating that pattern. So, they decide to shoot electrons through one at a time. There is no way they could interfere with each other. But after an hour of this, the same interference pattern is seen to emerge. The conclusion is inescapable. The single electron leaves as a particle, becomes a wave of potentials, goes through both slits, and interferes with itself to hit the wall like a particle. But mathematically, it's even stranger. It goes through both slits, and it goes through neither. And it goes through just one, and it goes through just the other. All of these possibilities are in superposition with each other. But physicists were completely baffled by this. So they decided to peek and see which slit it actually goes through. They put a measuring device by one slit to see which one it went through and let it fly. But the quantum world is far more mysterious than they could have imagined. When they observed, the electron went back to behaving like a little marble. It produced a pattern of two bands, not an interference pattern of many. The very act of measuring or observing which slit it went through meant it only went through one, not both. The electron decided to act differently, as though it was aware it was being watched.
So what does this tell us about our reality? It tells us that the moment there is consciousness viewing and defining how things should act, the infinite potentials act in that manner. The electron acted in the way consciousness defined it should act. We see two slits we have particles. We define that they must pass through the two slits and create two lines on the other side. However, before it is defined, the particle carries out every possibility. It is limitless. Consciousness, the observer, who we truly are, is in control of our entire reality. How we define our world and what plays out is entirely up to us on a collective scale. The world is infinite potential and infinite possibility. Our consciousness can shape it in any way we choose.